we go through our procurement activities. So very quickly, we've seen this slide before. The Long Bridge project, we know what it is. It extends from the Arlington at Long Bridge Park, just north of Queens Avenue in DC, so 1.8 miles. So I wouldn't believe this. It sits between the Alexandria Fort Track project to the south and the L'Enfant project to the north. So what's critical for us here is we've gone through a lot of activities, some of them ongoing, including the bulleted, highlighted line there, the construction contract procurement. We had briefed the board in prior sessions about our progress through our various steps. Now, I did want to spend a little bit of time as we advance the slides. I'm just going to go through the differences with the procurement methodologies, because I think it's important to kind of highlight why we chose what we chose. So, so the scope of our project, so we discussed this morning, the box in yellow was what we described earlier, North package. And an important characteristic there is we broke them into two packages deliberately based on the risk profile. The North package, just as we had heard for the Franconia bypass, similar risk profile with very concordant activities between VPRA's design construction as well as CSX's activities, as well as their CSX active rail corridor. Those similar concerns existed on the North package. So we chose a progressive design build delivery there because it provides that early contractor involvement with the various stakeholders to continue advancing design as well as de-risking the project. So question that could naturally be asked, why would we then, for the South package, which is what we're highlighting here today, choose design build, which is a different delivery methodology? So in this high-level graphic, you can see that the South package scope encompasses a new two-track rail bridge offline from the CSX corridor, and then offset from that. So the white line that you see at bullet number 2 there, that is the passenger, that is the pedestrian bike bridge structure. So starting from absolute, like just where the two's like smack dab there, that's the WMATA structure. Then the white line would be our proposed ped bike bridge. The next structure would be our proposed two-track rail bridge. And the very last structure that you see below is the existing CSX two-track rail bridge. So we're shoehorning those two structures in between there. And the South package essentially starts at the Aquatic Center, where it has a ballroom, and then traffic goes to the, that is the, was it West Potomac Park? Yeah. Within the district where it touches down and does that handshake, if you will, with the North package. So describing the actual infrastructure that exists in the South package, because it's offline of the CSX interest, we can control the outcomes there a little bit more directly with our contractor. So design build assumption methodology seemed appropriate. It certainly collapses the design and the build, the construction. However, what is really critical for our success is a lot of competition, because we are doing a two-step procurement, which is statements of qualification to shortlist preferred vendors, qualified vendors, and then going into the RFP phase. But at the RFP phase, which we will do next year, it's coming to the slide. The RFP phase next year is very critical, because at that juncture, we have to then get into good negotiations in earnest with our preferred vendor once we get to that point. And we'll have the one shot to negotiate a really strong contract. So I think, you know, the process that we're doing, it's tried and true. I think it's appropriate for where we are with the South package. So we're going through those procurement steps, those necessary procurement steps to set up kind of what we should do as the design build. So There are similarities between PDB, the progressive design build that we talked about earlier. That PDB with more risk. There's that step where you get to pause, do more design, and continue. The design build segment, we have a lot more certainty there. So we are moving forward with a design build where we believe that a contractor and VPRA can price and understand the risk a lot more definitive. That is it. That's it.
So I'm not going to read all the dates on this slide. The important thing is that we put out a schedule, but we've been sticking to it, and we've gotten some good words of praise from the community for doing that on all of our procurements. Most important ones here is that November 30th qualifications were due. We did receive.
Well, no, with no number, we're just excited for interest.
What?
I don't know if you were gonna give a number or not.
I know, I was going to say, we can't, if I had said, we can't talk about.
Sorry to interrupt.
First step.
I didn't even get in trouble yet. You got to wait.
Not gonna let you, Mike, not gonna let you.
And the next most important date is so we're going to shorten this from that list, and then the next most important date is the February 5th release of the RFP. And similar to now, we'll come back to the end of next year, hopefully in October, and explain to you in workshop and what their selected preferred bidder. Hopefully they will keep their, if anyone receives that notice of intent, don't be quiet.
So to that point, you see on the schedule in August of 2024, we issued the notice of intent to the preferred proposer. And at that point, we will have that same confidentiality conversation with them.
So next fall, we should be coming to you with request to award contractors for Longbridge South package. Big takeaway. Again, we'll have the leader of the South. A lot of work goes into this. So anyone who's been involved in procurements over the years, you know, it's a lot of paperwork, if you will, to go through. And here's the PED bike bridge. This came up earlier. We've talked about this in the past. It is going to be 16 feet wide, which is more than double the current width of the current PED bike bridge over the Potomac. So again, more than doubling of the current. It's 16 feet, pretty wide. You're allowing people to go in both directions to pass each other. This is going to be, as Spide already mentioned, did a good job explaining. It's going to be on the upstream side, the Georgetown side, if you will, of this, in a very tight window. It gets even tighter as you get closer to the DC side to be able to construct this between the WMATA bridge and the new bridge that we're putting in, the new rail bridge. And also, not only the width isn't over the body of the Potomac, also the entry and exit points for the pedestrian bike bridge are going to be impacting GW Parkway and National Park land on the east side as well. Yeah. It will be owned and maintained by the District Department of Transportation. They do have funding in their budget for a majority of the PED bike bridge, and agreement with them that we're working through. Mr. Westman, others, and DJ and others have been working through that they will be owning and maintaining the PED bike bridge. It'll be constructed as part of our South package procurement. And then when it's done, it will be transferred over to the district for them to own and maintain. And we are coordinating with them to make sure that it is to their standards. And it's something that is, if you build something, you want to make sure that the maintenance costs aren't too high. So we're also coordinating with them the width as well. And I think unless people have questions, the next steps we've already this is kind of the highlights of the date slide we had earlier. Again, we're under review now of the qualification, this RFP in early February, and coming back to you in the fall to give you more information. We'll continue to brief you on this, but we'll have a lot more information as we had this time around for the final contract, preferred contract. And that is it. Happy to go back and if you have any questions to answer any questions.
Go ahead.
I should know this. So we're building a new bridge. The old bridge is what is
It's remaining in place.
Pardon?
It's remaining in place. The CSX bridge is remaining in place. They did an analysis. The bridge is still in good shape for them.
Okay.
And we're building a new bridge next to them. In some ways, that makes this project easier than North Package because you don't have to worry about building in the same location that you're there already is active track. So this will help us with maintenance of traffic. That's very important for us with all our projects, with the bypass, with Long Bridge, all making sure traffic is maintained. As a lot of you know, this isn't just the main thoroughfare for VPRA and Amtrak, but for CSX as well, and also for goods coming to and from the Port of Virginia, for instance. So we'll be able to, their bridge will stay up and running just fine, and we'll be building a bridge right next to it.
Will they be doing anything to refurbish or do any work on the old bridge? It's an old bridge.
They have over the years, they have done periodic maintenance over the years. So at least by their assertion, their structure was sound for their use. And of course, they will program any capital maintenance that they require. Yeah, we're kind of exonerated from that.
Yeah, they've done tire replacements in the last year. I know Jeremy, I think we talked about it in the past, in some past board meetings. So they continue to do their maintenance on it.
Did you say, excuse me, did you say DC DOT will do the maintenance of the bike ped bridge?
They'll own it and maintain it.
They'll own it
Once
and
it's
maintain it, and so they'll fund it.
They have over $50 million in their budget for the ped bike bridge.
So they'll fund it though after it's built.
The maintenance as well, yes, will be their
Okay,
responsibility.
so that would not come back to Virginia at all. That would be their responsibility
The
to,
agreements aren't finalized yet?
yeah, okay. I just want to make sure,
When the title shifts from us to the district, there's maintenance shift as well, and long-term costs will be by the district for that operation, not VPRA.
okay.
Just predicting a question that you may have had. Why are we doing a ped bike bridge? So it was a good thing to do, but it's also a part of mitigation.
Yeah, I know why we're doing it, and that's a great, as a matter of fact, I think people on both sides would riot in Potomac River if you hadn't. But my question is though too, but why, I just am a little confused why DOT is going to, DC DOT is going to have that, I guess because why are they going to own it? And why would they do the maintenance on it? That's just
The river is theirs. They own the riverbed to Virginia shore.
okay.
So the sand, the rivers,
Okay, I didn't realize that. Okay, thank you.
Did I hear you correctly when you say you envision a bike ped bridge that is low maintenance? Did I hear that?
no, meaning when we're coordinating with DC on the parameters of the ped bike bridge, for instance, keeping it at 16 feet is something they prefer as well,
Right,
because anything bigger is going to have a higher maintenance cost. That's what I meant by that comment.
thank you.
And most everything we design, we do think about maintenance of it as well.
Yeah, we are actively working with DC to understand their design criteria, design it for maintainability, if that's a word, constructability. So they're looking at full life cycle and, the best structure that actually provides something more than just the benefit, but also reduces the effort.
Does that take anything away from the aesthetics? I mean, I've been in some cities where the bike ped bridges, and this is in a prime place over the river. It will definitely be a feature that tourists will be able to marvel at if it's done right.
This project, a fantastic question. So we have so many people who care about the aesthetics. NPS, NCPC, Commission of Fine Arts, the SHPO, they've all weighed in. The good news is we're converging. So the aesthetics, that is certainly a very important characteristic, especially in the district. So yeah, it's not beyond us.
And not just for the ped bike bridge, but for the Long Bridge Rail Bridge.
Just for the board members to know, I've been to a couple of public hearings on Long Bridge. And actually all the citizens who are there, with all due respect, Rich and DJ, they could care less about the rail. It was about the bike ped bridge. They're all there for that. So I was astonished at both meetings. It's very, very popular.
We're here.
And Spain.
Yeah.
They were.
Being people.
Glad to help.
The vast majority of comments during the EIS phase were from bicycle pedestrian.
Yes.
In one meeting, the only people there about the rail bridge were CSX. At that time, I was with DRBT and VRE and Amtrak. There was no one from the public. It was all the ped bike community.
Yeah.
It's, if those who know, it's a great multimodal area up here in Northern Virginia and DC, and we want to encourage all forms. And transportation weekdays and weekends. There are different uses. There is actually a lot of commuting. So I used to know someone who took the current Ped Bike Bridge every day to work.
Oh, wow.
When I lived in Alexandria, he took it every day to work.
Oh. Over the bridge.
Over the bridge, yeah, rode his bike there.
Well, and I mean, Mike's right about the great multimodal. You can take your bike on the train
Yeah.
to the station, and then if you don't want to get off at LaFont, you can get off at Crystal City, ride your bike and go in another direction, be it somewhere else in the city, Georgetown. So it is a good multimodal addition to this rail project to continue to move people efficiently and environmentally friendly.
Will that be a completely separate bridge or it'll be completely separate? It's not linked in any, okay.
Threat and vulnerability assessment dictated that it be completely separate.
Another question, since I'm hooked on the bike ped bridge as well. I remember Senator Warner doing some grand unveiling of a federal grant for this, right? So it's part federally funded, part on the Virginia side?
Received a $20 million raise grant.
Okay.
This is one of the multimodal grants put out by USDOT. I want to say that was September of 2022. DJ, you were there?
That's up right, $20 million.
Okay, and that's a lot of the costs?
That will cover some of the costs. You're looking at I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but you're looking up to close to $100 million or so, roughly. For the Ped Bike Bridge, DC's putting in more than 50 million, 20 million coming from the federal government as well.
Okay, I mean, think of the Millennium Bridge, or what, I'm trying to think of the name. In London, it goes from like the Tate Modern to St. Paul's Cathedral. That bridge is phenomenal. It's beautiful, right? And it's a pedestrian bridge. There's such potential here, right? I spent a lot of time back in my Hill days working on getting the Woodrow Wilson Bridge funded, right? I mean, that's a kind of attractive bridge, but think of 66 and think of, 395. That's a highway and Jersey barriers. That's not a bridge.
What would be nice about having a separate structure, that's incredible builder, but having a separate structure, you feel much more comfortable taking the Ped Bike Bridge.
Especially if it's beautiful.
We're excited about all the aspects of this project. I'll find evening today. This is a big day for folks like him who have been working on this. Even before our time, when he was at CSX, he's been working on this quite a long time.
Thank you. Bridge engineers love to talk about bridges. Thank you. Last item on our agenda for today is Amtrak and VRE partnership. Mr. Latimer. Welcome.
So I'm not going to talk about service the way I usually have. I'm just going to talk more about the relationship and the interactions between Virginia Passenger Rail Authority and the two passenger rail operators, VRE and Amtrak. And so I wanted to start with this map here, just kind of show that we're at the southern end of a very dense network coming out of the northeast of a lot of operators, including Amtrak. And you can see VRE in that orange-red color going into Washington, and then Amtrak being the blue lines that come down and then continue actually into the southeast. And so that you can see the Philly, the Washington, D.C. being our number one destination, and New York actually is usually number two. So the Northeast corridor has always played a large role in developing our operating plans. So I wanted to take a look first at the VPRA. So this is kind of a subway style map to look at the 8 round trips that VRA has on the blue Manassas line and the red Fredericksburg line. And I guess what I'd point out here too is that everything converges at Alexandria, right? So Alexandria is that mark where we're going to start separating things into Washington, D.C. and it gets really congested. And this is just to kind of show how all the service converges at that point. And then you'll see Amtrak there in the orange. And so we can't fit it all on one subway map where it just becomes too much. So looking at Amtrak in the same style, the Virginia state supported services are the navy blue. So that is currently 8 round trips a day. Then we have the North Carolina and the Carolinium in the Carolina blue there. There's also a state supported service from the North Carolina. Everything comes together, it's very congested. And we're slotting things through the VRE territory, Amtrak, and then also ensuring slotting into the Northeast corridor because it's so important for our ridership. So looking at VRE, I mean, we interact at every level, and they're on our board, we're on their. The Commonwealth Rail Fund that VPRA receives a large portion of, we pay the 84% of the access fees for VRE over Norfolk Southern, CSX, and Amtrak into Union Station. And then we also have capital grants with VRE for a lot of their station projects. And a lot of those are legacy projects that we carried over from DRPT because they have passenger improvements in the RFP between Richmond and DC. And then we also coordinate with VRE on opportunities to pursue federal, state, and regional grants so that we're all working together, not competing with each other when we're putting in applications. As a funding partner and a TRB implementation partner, so VRE is obviously that picture from our own board meetings here when VRE delivered a check for $120 million lump sum and then an additional $75 million over 10 years for the program. But we also, VPRA inherited a number of station assets from CSX through this deal. And so a lot of those, some of the structures on there, and VRE operates and maintains those stations. So we have a master lease of VRE. We also work with them on the capital projects. Of course, they have their station programs. They're also going to be constructing some of the improvements in the corridor. And then when it comes to service growth, as we both benefit from the projects completing and turning on more service for both Amtrak and VRE, we have to coordinate again through VRE's territory and on into Washington and the Northeast Corridor. Amtrak's similar in that, coming out of Washington, it's very important for us to connect to the Northeast Corridor. There's a lot of operators up there. This map comes from the Northeast Corridor Commission website, just to show the operators that Amtrak coordinates with in the Northeast. Virginia is a non-voting member of the Northeast Corridor Commission, which deals with the infrastructure up in the Northeast. But that one seat ride into the Northeast is important for our ridership and revenue. So before Virginia had a state-supported program, the long-distance service, the national network already existed into Virginia. Those are some of the name services you've heard of, if you've heard of the Cardinal or the Silver service. But then it's really the state-supported service that has been growing since Virginia's been growing this program. So in 2009, we started with a demonstration project that was really, I believe, contemplated to last about 3 years. We didn't have dedicated funding, but the Lynchburg to Washington, D.C., October 2009 was the month I started with DRPT, exceeded expectations on ridership. And then Richmond followed that in 2010 and also exceeded expectations. And so in 2012, under the Director Drake at DRPT, extended the Richmond train, and we've never looked back, right? Our programs continue to grow because of the success of the ridership. And while we were doing these demonstration trains, there were things changing at the federal level. So the Passenger Rail Investment and Improvement Act of 2008 had been signed, and states were working on a methodology to better standardize allocating costs between Amtrak and states for service. And that meant something in October 1st, 2013, that if states did not pick up a service that operated less than 750 miles, that service would cease to exist. So for us in Virginia, we were one of the first states, if not the first state, to sign a new 209 agreement under the PREA 2008 Act. Section 209 is what we refer to for the agreement with Amtrak. We signed that on October 1st, 2013, taking over 2 existing round trips out of Richmond and 2 existing round trips out of Newport News. So our trains from Norfolk and Lynchburg then became, instead of just 2 daily round trips, we had 6 daily round trips in our state-supported program. That 209 operating agreement, you probably heard DJ say that every time he gives his executive director report. That is the operating and capital cost sharing formula that the states work with Amtrak to refine. It gives us the ability to define frequencies, our schedules, our staffing levels at stations and on board. It also allows us to influence the fare policy, which is how we pursue balancing ridership and revenue. I'm not going to go through everything on here, but this is a very helpful graphic and a good printout to just keep close about how we've had some milestones over the years to grow our program and how it's really evolved successfully. So I will point out, though, in 2006, when Virginia created the Rail Enhancement Fund, it was largely a freight program. Now, VRE took advantage of that program. It was for capital projects in the corridor. But that was kind of the founding relationship with the freights. I feel like that's really where we got off on the right foot with a lot of our freight brokers, understood the value of the freights to Virginia, invested in the network. And then out of that came our demonstration projects. And then by 2011, a dedicated fund for passenger rail service. And here we are today. So when you sponsor your service, you become a member of a club. known as the State Amtrak Intercity Passenger Rail Committee. So we're a member of this club. It includes Amtrak, the Federal Railroad Administration, and 20 states. And we oversee that 209 policy. These are meetings that can get very intense and very into the weeds on cost methodology. But we have quarterly meetings, both virtually and in person. Our next one will be in Washington in January. We have working groups where we work on commercial performance, we work on the capital cost of the equipment, and also the methodology for allocating costs if a staff member is 100% for us, or we share costs at stations, all these things. And then through that group, we've also worked with Amtrak on the aero procurement. So the states had a voice in the procurement of the equipment and what it should look like and how it should act. And so one of our big things during this procurement was, of course, the dual powered locomotives because of that engine change in Washington. So for Virginia and a number of other states, we made our voice heard through that process. And together, the Safer Sea State Amtrak Intercity Passenger Rail Committee is a collective voice on federal issues. It cannot advocate because it is funded by Congress, but we do work on issues that we are approached about. So like during the pandemic, when funding was coming out to keep service going, we came up together with an allocation methodology for how funding should be distributed to different services. And then with Amtrak, again, like VRE, more than just an operator in Virginia, but a partner on the Transforming Rail in Virginia initiative, Amtrak has invested $944 million into our program. And with that comes a number of things, including dispatch rights from Alexandria to Washington. They get intercity passenger rail operator exclusivity, but that exclusivity comes with Virginia negotiating for certain service standards. So it could be revoked if certain standards are not met. Amtrak will also get a level boarding platform at Crystal City, where VRE already has a station. And then the additional after 2030, when we have our implemented service plan, after 2030, there's additional capacity over the new Long Bridge, and Amtrak would be entitled to 25% of that capacity. Similar to VRE, we inherited certain things from CSX, Ettrick Station, things at Staples Mill, Stanton, soon to be Charlottesville as well. And so we have a master lease with Amtrak for maintaining those stations. Virginia has to maintain or ensure ADA compliance, state of good repair and asset management where Amtrak operates. We have them taking on a lot of that, and we fund through the 209 agreement. And then we also have service facilities in Virginia, and I'll mention that there are 4 of these. We have a new one that will be finished in the spring in Newport News with a new station. We have one under design for Fulton Yard in Richmond, Virginia. Roanoke currently has a service facility that is Amtrak operated at least from NS, but a new one will be designed for the New River Valley extension. And then in Norfolk, we have St. Julian's Yard, which VPRA now owns. So we have secured that location because it can handle future service expansions. And then the design and funding for those facilities, we're coordinating with Amtrak as they have IIJA funding, upgrade facilities for the aero equipment, and we want to make sure we share with that funding when we do our work. So that is largely the story of our interaction with VRE and Amtrak. There are any questions?
Jeremy,
Sir.
where are we on the acquisition of the train sets that are due in Diesel and
They are currently scheduled to start showing up in Virginia in 2027.
2027?
Yes. So the schedule is still holding, but we would see probably 1 or 2 trains 90 days after operation in the Northeast.
Thank you.
Questions?
So I have a question and it regards with you, Rich. So Amtrak is building a stop in Crystal City, correct? A station stop? Does VPRA have anything to do with it?
We do. And do you want to comment? Or?
Let me just say that it's a collaborative effort and VPRA is included.
Okay, so to that end, and I'm sorry, everybody, I'm talking about Arlington County, which is my home. So I just want to make sure it's successful. And Arlington County built $1 million bus stop just 2 blocks from my home that received national attention because we had WMATA and we had Arlington County. And there was finger pointing at each one about what was not getting done. And it took an audit to bring to the public's attention that it was $1 million bus stop. After that audit, and after got all this national attention, finally, WMATA and Arlington County started working together. but it wasn't until that audit was done. So I'm a little concerned, and we've had JBG Smith, they were here last meeting, correct? And testified on this issue. And I've talked with some of the civic associations in the area, and they're all very excited about the new VRE station, and they're excited about the Amtrak station, but they're concerned that there's not an independent group that's helping to make sure both sides talk to one another and coordinate with one another. So having said that, is that a role for VPRA to take?
Can I jump in on this one? I'm going to go one step further. Right adjacent to the new, so there's a new Crystal City station.
Yes,
Being-
that's correct. That's going to be across the street.
Alongside of that is also the Crystal City to DCA pedestrian bridge. It's also part of a multimodal package of improvements to support national landing. And I will give you an example of where I think VPRA adds a lot of value. They are making sure that those things are being coordinated so that pedestrian bridge provides access to the station to get at exactly what you're saying, that these projects aren't happening in a vacuum, that people then point fingers when connections aren't made. So I would say VPRA is definitely stepping in and working with VRE and Arlington County. I know Mike's been up there. I've talked to folks on all sides of that equation. Like that collaboration is there. It's VRE's project. So Rich probably should say something, but it is there. That collaboration is happening to make sure that that does.
Well, it needs to happen, and you may say that, but the people in the area don't think that because they're very, very concerned. And again, this is
I understand that people in the area might think that, but the people that are working on it know what's happening.
ahead.
No,
No, I just want to just make sure that VPRA, I just think we should be the umpire calling balls and strikes to make sure that both projects are done, on time and within some sort of budget, whatever that budget is. So.
Again, there's actually multiple, there's another project, the Alexandria Fort Truck project.
Mhm.
That VPRA is paying for CSX to lead in that. So there's multiple projects in this area. We actually coordinated with VRE, Amtrak, and CSX to make sure the construction of the Amtrak platform, the high-level platform, will not conflict with the construction of not only the Alexandria Fort Track project, but the Long Bridge project. Really, the tail end of it gets into Crystal City. So we have to make sure that Long Bridge project, and you need that Fort Track fluidity that Long Bridge project is going to bring before we and the Alexandria project is going to bring before we install the Amtrak Crystal City platform. That's going to be high level. So we did broker an agreement with CSX and Amtrak, and Rich, you and I talked many times before we okayed that. To your point, what I'm hearing from you is that maybe when we have pop-up meetings and other meetings, we explain that to the public. There is a lot of coordination with not only Amtrak, VRE, CSX, but JBG Smith as well.
Yeah.
Because they might be donating a land for a station house. So a lot of times we talk generally about a station. A lot of times that just means the platform.
Yeah. There's
a station house as well that JBG Smith's looking at, that land they own on the Crystal City side as well. So we also have National Airport there, as Chair DeBrule mentioned, the CCDCA. Also constrained because there's National Park Service land on one side, and you need an act of Congress to butt into that. It's very complicated.
No, exactly. And that's why I totally agree. And that's why I think VPRA needs, again, I'm just saying an umpire to call the balls and strikes. And that would help you out as well. So at the end of the day.
well, I'll just say from my perspective, and this has taken a little bit of time. We had several different interests, if you will, that eventually turned into projects, and they were all on different timelines, right? So what I see now is that all of that is essentially coming together. And the last piece to that was the CC to or the pedestrian crossing over to the airport and stuff. So I would suggest that, early on in the project, that there was some and not intentional disconnect, if you will, but again, because there was so many different interests. And for example, honestly, we've been ready to relocate this station for 5 years.
Well, I know.
Right? So then all these other things come in. And I think the good news story is that is that we're now, sort of on these relative timelines now to where, we can connect all those elements. So I'm not, again, I'll concede that there may have been that in the past, but where we're at now, absolutely not.
Do we know where Amtrak currently is in their process of building their station?
They're in a design phase similar to us as well. And again, this gets very, very complicated.
Exactly.
I mean, very complicated, very complex. We've had discussions about, different phasing of different elements of the project because of the Alexandria to RO or AF to RO 4-track project, because there's elements that we want to get at the station level completed before the 4-track comes in. I mean, it's very, very complex. And those things are, frankly, have now come together within reason to project.
Yeah, and that's why I'm suggesting this. I definitely realize the complexity.
Yeah,
so that's what I'm saying. But VPRA is not going to have, probably, I'm not sure if you have leverage over Amtrak. I mean, you're being on the board here, Rich, so hopefully you would be. But I just want to make sure if we do have some issues, or to make sure the projects are going, that VPRA kind of, again, acts as a little bit of a.
Let me just say this, just to address that, because you get to this point where you have a team of professionals.
Right.
There, and it's not, frankly, something this complex and in the alphabet soup of organizations involved. And I don't want to exclude Arlington County, because Arlington County is at the end of the day, we've got some of the best talent on the planet involved in, these decisions and stuff like that. So it's not a matter of, leverage over one entity or other. It's a bunch of professionals getting together and actually coordinating a project in the right fashion.
To my WMATA bus stop issue.
Well,
so it's WMATA and Arlington County, and the two, and all of a sudden we have $1 million bus stop.
Changing
Makes attention.
if I may, VPRA is not the umpire there calling balls and strikes. However, and we're not changing analogy, we're not the conductor either. But we are working very closely with our band of professionals, be it Amtrak, CSX, JBG, Arlington, Alexandria to some extent. And we all know, stacking all of our issues together, that if one of us doesn't sound good, the whole band doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
So that communication, and Rich is right, there were bumps in the beginning on all parts, and I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. However, we all understand every eye is looking at these projects, and we know none of us want to be that one instrument that makes the band sound.
Yeah, this isn't coming from me. This is coming from the community. And
It would be
they're important. So
for this.
let me give you the names, and I think you guys should meet with them and let them know what you're doing, because it's coming from the community, the taxpayers, and I think they need to be acknowledged and be briefed as to what's going on, because there's some big concern.
And the community outreach is huge, and we've started that. We'll continue that as we move forward, because no surprises.
Let me give you the stakeholders, and you guys probably should reach out to them.
Happy to do that.
And hopefully you can take what you've heard today and help carry that message back as a member of the.
Yeah, but I don't know we didn't talk about the Amtrak station, so I'm not briefed on that, so.
And if I can, VPRA actually hosts coordination meetings. And actually we're squatting in Jen's Alexandria space across the way from the new space to bring the meeting full circle to the DJ talks about our new space in Alexandria. We chose that space on purpose because it's easy to get to. It's right a block away from Rich's offices. But I've been at meetings where we host Amtrak, VRE, CSX, FRA, VPRA. I'm sure I'm forgetting Arlington. So we do post that. To your point, we'll let people know that. So DJ, so we're not just we're the facilitator in many ways. We have been with Transfer Rail Virginia in general, facilitating all this. None of this would happen. We do have some leverage over Amtrak. We're going to be the ones owning the left side of the corridor, where the station's going in. We'll be owning the land and the track where they want to install.
I know you guys have, I know we have leverage over them. Absolutely. And that's part of my point. So anyway.
Yes, those names will meet with them. Thank you.
It'll be cool when it's done.
Oh, I know. I'm all for it. Just want to make sure it's not costing us like $1 million bus stop.
Any other questions for Mr. Latimer? All right, with that, our next board meeting will be January 23rd. We are here in Richmond. that, we will stand adjourned.